For as long as humans have told stories, we've spoken of monsters, creatures so strange, so impossible, that they could only exist in legend. Dragons coiled beneath mountains, Leviathans stirred the oceans, and winged beasts blotted out the sun. They filled the gap between the known and the unknown, giving shape to our greatest fears. But what if those stories weren't fiction? What if they were distorted memories of real animals? Glimpses of giants, predators, and relics of worlds we thought long vanished. In ancient manuscripts, temple carvings, and explorers' journals, historians keep finding clues that suggest our ancestors might have seen things we no longer can. Skeletons that match mythic shapes, fossils that line up eerily with age-old drawings, and eyewitness accounts, written centuries apart, describing the same impossible creatures. Again and again, the line between myth and history begins to blur, because behind every legend lies a seed of truth. Maybe dragons were inspired by dinosaur bones unearthed long before science had a name for them. Maybe the sea serpents sailors feared were glimpses of colossal, unknown predators still lurking in the abyss. And maybe, just maybe, some myths were never myths at all. Tonight, we'll uncover 9 of these legendary beings. Creatures once dismissed as fantasy, but now re-examined through the lens of history and science. From beasts of the deep to titans of the sky, these are the monsters that might have truly walked beside us. And the first one left its mark in the darkest depths of the sea. For sailors of the old world, the sea was both a pathway and a predator. They feared what lurked beneath it, and no creature embodied that terror more completely than the Kraken. First described by Norse seafarers more than 800 years ago, the Kraken was said to rise from the blackest depths, its vast arms curling around ships like twigs. Whole crews vanished without a trace, leaving only floating debris and silence behind them. In medieval maps, the Kraken was often drawn at the very edges of the ocean, marked by a warning, "Here be monsters." Those weren't metaphors. Captains kept logs of strange shapes moving under their hulls, of whirlpools that appeared where no storm had been. Some even spoke of eyes the size of barrels, glinting just below the surface before the sea itself exploded in a surge of foam and limbs. For centuries, scholars dismissed these stories as sailors' rum-soaked nightmares, until modern science caught up. In 1857, the discovery of the Architeuthis ducks, or giant squid, changed everything. Measuring over 40 feet, with tentacles lined with hooks and eyes as wide as dinner plates, this very real monster matched the Kraken's description with chilling accuracy. And that wasn't the end. Deep-sea cameras have since captured colossal squids alive in their natural habitat. Slow, deliberate, intelligent, creatures of shadow that rarely breach the light. They are proof that our oceans still hide leviathans, and perhaps that sailors weren't exaggerating at all. Even now, the Kraken reminds us that the sea remains largely unexplored. Over 80% of its depths are still unknown. An entire alien world on our own planet. If anything like the Kraken still waits down there, it hasn't vanished. It's simply watching from below, biding its time. But the next creature didn't come from the ocean. It ruled the skies. Across the endless plains and towering mountains of North America, native tribes told stories of a colossal bird that ruled the skies. The Thunderbird. It was said to create thunder with the beating of its wings and hurl lightning from its eyes. When it flew, storms followed. When it rested, the winds went still. To many indigenous cultures, the Thunderbird was more than a creature. It was a spirit, a guardian, and a sign of balance between the heavens and the earth. For generations, Western explorers dismissed these tales as symbolism or myth. But then came reports too specific to ignore. Enormous shadows crossing the desert, winged figures gliding above canyons with wingspans that dwarfed any known bird. In 1890, 2 Arizona ranchers even claimed to have shot one down. A gigantic creature with wings like a bat's, stretching over 16 feet. The story spread like wildfire, and while the carcass was never verified, others soon followed. Sightings in Texas, Alaska, and Illinois, each describing the same impossible shape against the sky. Paleontology offers a haunting explanation. Millions of years ago, creatures like Argentavis magnificens soared over prehistoric South America. With wingspans of up to 23 feet and talons large enough to lift a small deer, these birds defy imagination, yet their fossils prove they were real. Even larger winged reptiles such as Quetzalcoatlus northropii, a pterosaur the size of a small aircraft, lived long after the dinosaur's prime. So when ancient peoples described thunderbirds, were they really recalling spirits of the storm? Or were their ancestors remembering glimpses of these prehistoric titans? Some researchers believe fossil finds near tribal lands may have inspired the myths. But others insist that something alive once matched those wings. And if the skies once belonged to giants, what else might still be hiding on land? Older, quieter, and far more dangerous. Our next creature slithered through legend, and through history itself. In the dusty libraries of medieval Europe, few creatures inspired as much dread as the basilisk, the so-called king of serpents. Chronicles described it as a creature born from dark alchemy, a serpent hatched from the egg of a rooster, incubated by a toad. Its very gaze was said to kill, its breath to poison the air, and its presence to wither crops and men alike. Travelers spoke of villages abandoned overnight, of livestock found lifeless with no wounds. Victims, they said, of the basilisk's invisible death. To modern minds, it sounds absurd, yet the myth endured for centuries, repeated in every language of Europe. Why? Because there were always witnesses. Scholars in the 16th century recorded serpents with crests like cocks, their scales glinting like gold discovered in wells and ruins. Even kings ordered hunts for the creature, their chroniclers describing its strange power in eerie detail. Something about those reports kept the legend alive, and it may not have been pure imagination. Naturalists have suggested that the basilisk legend grew from real creatures, spitting cobras, whose venom can blind from a distance, or large monitor lizards with bright crests and hissing displays that freeze prey in terror. In the shadowed corners of the world, such animals could easily appear supernatural to early eyes. Yet archaeological findings complicate the theory. Carvings in ancient temples, centuries older than the medieval tales, show serpent-like beings crowned with crests, remarkably similar to the basilisk's image. Some even depict men shielding their faces from its glare. Perhaps humanity has always remembered this shape, not as metaphor, but memory. And if a serpent could command such fear on land, what about the monsters that ruled the waters? Ancient killers that left fossils as big as houses. Because the next creature wasn't a myth carved in stone, it was a predator that truly lived. Long before humanity ever set sail, there was another ruler of the seas. A predator so vast that even the great white shark would have seemed like a minnow beside it. Its name was Megalodon, from the Greek meaning giant tooth. And those teeth, some over 7 inches long, are all that remain of the greatest killer the oceans have ever known. Imagine a creature stretching nearly 60 feet from snout to tail, jaws capable of crushing a whale's skull in a single bite, and an appetite that turned the ancient seas into feeding grounds of terror. For millions of years, Megalodon was an apex predator, unmatched and unstoppable. Fossilized vertebrae and bite marks on prehistoric whales tell a story of domination so complete that when Megalodon swam by, the entire ocean must have gone silent. Science tells us it vanished roughly 3.6 million years ago, yet the legend refuses to die. Throughout history, sailors and fishermen have reported monstrous shadows gliding beneath their boats, massive fins slicing through the waves, far larger than any known shark. In 1918, off the coast of Australia, a group of fishermen described losing their entire catch when a giant white shark tore their lines apart. Some said it was over 100 feet long. The official records dismissed it as exaggeration, but to those men, it was real. Modern technology has deepened the mystery. Vast regions of the ocean remain unexplored, deeper than Mount Everest is tall. Every year, new species are discovered, some thought extinct for millions of years. Could Megalodon still survive in the black, cold depths beyond our reach? Most scientists say no, but others point to missing whale carcasses, unexplained sonar readings, and bite marks that don't match any known predator. Maybe the Megalodon never truly disappeared. Maybe it simply went where we cannot follow. Because when myths fade, the monsters don't vanish. They just retreat into the dark, waiting to be rediscovered. And as we resurface from the depths, one question remains. How many legends are we still calling myths when they might be history? For centuries, we've separated legend from history. Dragons in one book, fossils in another. But perhaps they were always chapters of the same story. Every myth begins with a witness, every legend with a memory. And when you look closely, the distance between imagination and evidence starts to shrink. The Kraken, the Thunderbird, the Basilisk, even the Megalodon. They remind us that the world once belonged to giants, and that mystery still lies just beneath the surface. Maybe we haven't outgrown these creatures. Maybe we've simply stopped looking. So what do you believe? Are myths fading echoes of the impossible? Or are they signposts to a forgotten reality waiting to be rediscovered? Tell us in the comments below. And if you want to keep exploring the blurred line between legend and truth, Like, subscribe, and join us for the next descent into the unknown.